I'm Barbara Tien, here to welcome you for Kathy's Corner, our monthly special event walking through all of those artifacts and photographs and elements of your family history that can be overwhelming. Kathy's Corner is here to help you conquer that photo mess one step at a time. Our programming will last about an hour, and then we do turn off the recording, so we have a little after party after that, and take our time and get to know one another and engage in conversations. You all know all about projectkin.org is probably how you found your way here, and we're delighted to have you. Join us in this conversation in the group if you heard about us some other way. It's a membership program, and it's through the membership that we share details and conversations, resources, tips, and recordings after the event. All of this is available free. All we ask is an email so that we know who we're sharing it with and we can actually engage in conversations with essentially name tags. Digital name tags is really what that amounts to. So again, welcome, and we'll go ahead and get started. Kathy, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So again, I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and it's good to see old friends and new, I hope, joining us today, or tonight or this morning, wherever you are. It's starting to get dark here in Calgary, so I was thinking, oh, it's evening here now, but it's really only 4 o'clock. But that'll be changing at some point here soon. That it won't be getting dark at 4:30. So,
do you want to take down the slide so we can see you?
I can see me.
There we go.
Does that work?
That works great.
Well, there we are. So so welcome, and a little background on myself and Kathy's Corner. I started, I'm not going to go back in the whole history. I'll stick with Projectkin, but I've been doing this for about a year now in conjunction with Barbara and through a couple iterations of different named companies, but we've settled on Projectkin and the goal and message of it. And so initially I talked about, and I believe it was with a company called Ponga, where Barbara and I first met and it was I'm going to be your Sherpa over the Mount Inertia in getting your photos organized. So I am a professional photo manager. I started that business probably, what are we at, 13 years ago. And I am semi-retired now and working on my own photos. And that was the inspiration for Kathy's Corner, is that with the background I have in organizing other people's photos, that I could maybe help individuals organize their own photos while I am sadly organizing all my own photos, because it's the classic case of the shoemaker's children. I have box loads and box loads of photos that aren't organized because I spent 12 years organizing everyone else's. Prior to that, I am a scrapbooker. I was originally a scrapbooker back in the days before digital photos. I'm revealing how old I am now, too. Before digital photos were a thing, and we got that whole added to our problems, digital photos, I was a scrapbooker. I made traditional scrapbooks. I wasn't very, how shall I say, efficient at that either. So all my photos did not get into scrapbooks, sadly. And I've reached that point in my life where my mother has passed and all of her siblings are gone. And I only have one aunt left on my dad's side of the family. So I've kind of inherited the job of the person who everybody dumped all the family photos on. So that's added to, I not only have my own mess to deal with, but that's what I'm hoping we can work through, is whatever brought you here to listen to this. Throughout last year, we did talked about the 8 steps gone right out of my head. I need notes, Barbara. The 8 steps from from tubs of photos to tales of yore. That's the catchphrase. So we did a session on all those 8 steps. So the recordings are all in Projectkin. And if you're new to Kathy's Corner, encourage you to go back and look at those recordings, and you don't have to look at all 8 of them at once either. You can go, sorry, dry air. You can go back through them one at a time, because they're like steps that you can work on. What we're going to do today is kick off 2024. Let me find, I've been in Zoom for 3 days now, and I can't remember how Google Meet works now. Window. There. And share it. Okay. Okay, so welcome. That's the welcome one. What I want to talk about today are basically four things. The theme today is let's kick off 2024 and get our plan in place and figure out what we're going to do. And this applies to me too. I'm working on that too. And so basically, and you don't need to write these down. They're pretty simple. I'm going to ask you the questions each time and we can think about them. But I want to talk a little bit about what were your gains. A book was pointed out to me a lot called The Gap versus the Gap versus Gain. And it talked about how we in the past have always looked at our accomplishment or what we did in a year. We tend to look at what we failed at getting done. We make a big list of, oh, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, I didn't get that done on our plan. But instead, I want to focus on what did you get done. I sat down the other day and wrote down what I did get done in 2023, and I was quite impressed. It's a better way to look at it than if I made the list of what isn't done yet, I'd be discouraged. And so I want you to look at what you accomplished in terms of your photos. And if you're just getting started, that's okay. If you've accomplished something today by coming here to hear more about it. So then we're going to look at what is your big picture, and then what are going to be the steps. We'll talk about steps, and then we'll talk a bit about scheduling time. But because we're trying to go from the picture on top to the picture on the bottom, and in some form. Now I'm going to stop presenting again so you could see me and we don't have to look at that. So I told Barbara that she had to answer one of these questions too. So a little bit, what did I gain when I sat down and looked at my gains in my photo projects? What I gained was I set up an Excel spreadsheet that I was trying to share with you. I set that up for my own personal photos. I adapted it from something I used to use with my clients, but I actually started using it for my own photo mess. I started gathering the physical. It's all kind of in my house, but it was sort of all over in a whole bunch of places. And I've spent a year mining various locations in my home to find where everything was that needed to be dealt with, both the physical and then mining on my computer, because I have pictures in a bunch of different places on my computer too. So just the step of that step 2 is to gather everything up. So I got a really good handle, I think, on my physical. I've got a couple more things to gather that are still in other places, but I've got everything gathered together, and that spreadsheet talks you through the one that I'd love to be able to share with you, but we have technical problems.
I can share the screen of my screen of it.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I can just talk about it. While that would make more sense.
And there's the thing that makes it smaller. There we go. So we see more of you.
Yeah, so this is the, that's a really old one. We'll have to get them a new one. So that was basically the gathering part, where I started gathering together. Oh no, I just didn't see that.
It's a different tab.
Okay, gathering checklist. So this gives you an idea of all the places to look at. So whoever just asked for notes, here's some good places to start. All the places that you can look at to try and find where things might be. And so I made notes as to where my stuff was. And then there should be a sheet on there, and it lists all the possibilities of things you might have. You may not have them all. And then back to my plan. My own worksheet now is much fuller because I think I'm up to like 36 different box numbers on there now, and a lot of work that's been done. So back to the gains. I filled out this spreadsheet. That was the first big thing. I labeled all the boxes of stuff and numbered them all so that I could follow along. I quickly look up, okay, what's in box number 10? I could quickly look on my spreadsheet and it tells me without having to open the box lids or put a whole page of paper taped what it is, because I forget what's in various boxes. So it was a good thing because some of my boxes, I love clear plastic bins if you're just gathering now, but a lot of my stuff wasn't in that. It was in cardboard boxes. It was in black plastic bins. So just to have an index to everything I had, I labeled all the boxes. And then one of my biggest projects was to I wanted to digitize the photos of my kids were born in 1996, and I wanted to digitize. It turned out to be 1996 until 2006 when I got a digital camera, because those were all print photos, and given that time spell, 1996 to 2006. Some of you may remember the days where you could always get extra sets of prints for like a quarter. And so why wouldn't you get 2 or 3 extra cents in case you wanted to pass them out? Because you certainly weren't sharing them on Facebook, because none of those things even existed yet or weren't commonly used. So I had a lot of copies of my pictures. I had 4 sets because I thought, well, I need one for me, I have 2 boys. I better have 1 set for each of them, a set for my mom, a set for my mother-in-law. And well, heck, if it was an activity, I better have an extra set to give to people. So I think my biggest accomplishment was to sort and cull through all those pictures. And I have sitting on my desk there, they're culled. I have to batch up the negatives tonight to ship off for digitization, but I am done. I have finished 1996 all the way up to 2006. They have been culled. And other than this last batch of negatives, there's a batch being digitized right now. And this last little bit of negatives, it's probably about 10, less than 10 sets of negatives that need to be digitized. And then I will have digitized that whole time period to when I got my digital camera. And so then there's just a few more things going forward. There's a few times where we had underwater cameras, but that's it. So that to me was a huge accomplishment when I go back and look at it, because they were in shoe boxes, they were all over, and now I've got the pictures all sorted with the one set that I will keep. They're marked that they're digitized, so my family can go forward now. They'll know they've already been scanned, and then I'm throwing away all my duplicates and triplicates and all those extra ones. I'm keeping one set of the originals, but I will let my kids decide whether they want to keep them. They'll be marked as these are already digitized, throw away if you want. Because I got I have twin boys, and I got an answer from one who said, yeah, Mom, throw them all away. And the other one said, no, keep those. So, okay. And it takes up so much less space. Like, it's so much. I'm so happy because the amount of stuff I got rid of was just mind blowing. So that was and I also have listed my sources of my digital. I'm going to do a little updating on this sheet too, Barbara, with a couple more things. Great. That we'll post in the next day or so. I can probably do it tomorrow. But I listed all the digital sources on my computer, where I have photos. I have photos in a software program. I have photos in a thing called Photo on my computer, in the picture folder on my Windows computer. I have digital photos on external hard drives. I have scans everywhere too. So I've made a list of where everything is so I can start collecting something. And later on, when we talked about digitizing and organizing your digital, we talk about what to do with that. So don't worry, I won't tell you everything I did yet. And that's something I'll be working on. So I'm going to throw the discussion open now. Who worked on a project last year? You can just put your hand up. Do you have a raised hand in this program? Linda worked on a project.
Actually, I do.
And Marcy worked on a program, and Sandra worked on a program, and Barbara worked on a program. A project, sorry. Al worked on a project. Christina worked on a project. That's wonderful. I'm so excited. Does anyone want to talk a little bit about what their project was or what their gains were last year? What an accomplishment was? Anybody? Barbara. Oh, somebody's talking. Good. Go ahead.
I have 14,000 pictures on Milo.
Good for you.
That have been pretty much all digitized, or half of them are digitized and half of them were digital. So, and I'm working through them to try to eliminate duplicates.
That's great, Al. That's a huge accomplishment. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Milo is one of many software programs that exist out there for sorting your storing and sorting digital photos too, and adding all the information we like to add, like tell your story. And it's yeah, there, Barbara popped the link in there. So it is one. Yes, Jenny, I have the same boxes. You know the black ones I speak of. I have a lot of them. So, but the Mylio is a program that is recommended by photo managers. So it's just, there's lots of programs out there, and because something's not recommended by the photo managers doesn't mean it's not good. But if something is recommended by photo managers, it means people have tested it out and are using it possibly with their clients. So good job, Ala. Somebody put in the chat. Sandra created a family tree going back 4 generations, found, edited, and inserted photos of each ancestor into it. Good for you. And Jenny set up a photo hub for her past scans. And that's a good thing to do, because I've discovered something in my past scans. One of my cousins did a whole bunch of scanning, and I was at there. We all got together with, and all my aunts and everybody, we all brought our pictures and we scanned them, and it was in 1986. And I have a copy of the CD. I'm looking around, probably everybody here knows what that is. I don't have to explain that as I do to my children. I have a CD of all these scans, and I put them, and I've looked at them online, and they're like good. So I start to try and use them, and they're like 27 kilobytes. They're like 10 kilobytes, you know. So they're all, because she had the top of the line Epson scanner in 1986.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not much use. So luckily I have access to quite a few of the programs, of the photos still, so I can redo them. But that's always a good thing to check too. If you've got old stuff that was digitized, is just to check and make sure that the sizes are of any, they're good. We still have the photos and they're digitized. So that's the most important. But if you happen to have access to them still and can redo them, that's even better. So that was Sandra did the family. Yeah, duplicate finding is another one. Who else said they had done a project? Oh, Christina typed in the chat. She was scanned grandma's old photo albums, still working on them. The plastic gives me issues, and I have one where the photos are all red. I'm currently indexing to make them easy to find, and did a family history book last year, as well as digitizing grandmother's old VHS tapes. That's great, Christina. That's a lot. I especially like to see the VHS tape mentioned, because those are disintegrating even if they're just laying on your shelf, they are disintegrating. They are one of the whatever they were made of at the time is not a long lasting, even if you had a VHS to watch them on now, but they're losing their quality. So, and those I always recommend you get a professional to digitize rather than buying all the little pieces of equipment and stuff, because they're in a fragile state, and a professional will handle them very delicately and might be able to clean stuff. But
wow, that's a great tip. Can you offer an opinion on high 8 tapes in the same?
Any of those tapes are, I don't
magnetic
think, because they came right out of the camera. I don't think they're deteriorating as bad. They were probably a higher quality recording device.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we didn't record directly, other than TV things. Like I took my high 8 tapes and transferred them onto VHS so I could give them to my mother to look at. So it's a secondary copy anyway, not the original. But any kind of any old media, the ones that probably are lasting the best are the old 8 movie reels, which again, the biggest issue, you can't see them. So
yeah,
they're physical, and it runs the risk of losing them in a natural disaster or a theft or something. So
yeah, I have a good to see, Jenny.
Yes.
I know there's some gems in there.
And Marcy did a lot of deduplicating and tried out a Canva board. Good for you. Deduplicating is one of the best things to do, because when what we're all working towards, and what I am too, is to leave a legacy. Part of that legacy doesn't need to be duplicates, same pictures. And it's surprising how easy you can get ton of digital duplicates just by having different backing up your computers. Like, oh, I'm getting a new computer, I better back up all my photos, and so they're sitting in one block. So, and we did talk about deduplication software in one of the sessions too. So that's another good thing to do. Anybody else?
I took a confessional during one of our talks back in the fall. You don't have to go watch it, about Apple Photos, and realized that, of course, my Google Photos, I use Google Photos for my main day-to-day collection, all those cat pictures. And I did not have a separate backup of it, and I was embarrassed that I did not. Well, I have now done that since we're confessing. It was 345 gigs, not for the faint of heart, but Google did a very good job of giving me a download of that in 2 gig increments, and they're now backed up. I need a separate step to that, which is a local, drive to bring that into an SSD drive, but that's coming, more coming.
Okay. Let's just.
I've also in the middle of a project, which is, I know at least, I think I saw Jenny here and perhaps Jane Chapman on weare.xyz in bringing in a family archive. I'm in the middle of 2 entirely separate projects to do that. For one, the important one, the short term, is for my father-in-law, and celebrating Chinese New Year's. Big family excitement next month.
Yes, I have my Chinese New Year tree up already. Quirky. So the next thing I want you to think about, this is where you actually have to do some work. I'm not going to do any more work now. I'm going to ask you all questions. And the first question is, what's your big picture? This is like the starting point. And if you've already got this set because you worked through last year, that's great. But I like it's kind of a play on words, your big picture, but with your photos and your memorabilia and your media and all that stuff, your physical items that you want people to know about down the road. What is the big picture? Like if the magic photo organizing fairy came to your house and waved the wand, what do you want to see? Because that's often a good starting point to put some order to all this chaos that you have. Like, and we'll call it chaos because some of it's neatly. I had weird things I had done. I thought I had some stuff relatively organized, but there's a bit of chaos there. So my big picture is I want to have a family legacy that I can pass on to whoever wants it. My kids, my relatives, anybody who wants to have the family legacy, be it photos, memorabilia, and that'll be like, we have a lot of physical stuff that I want to have as photos, not necessarily the physical. And I'm going to try and do this by memory, Barbara, but there were 3 questions to ask in terms of what do you want to see in there is like, what do you want people to know? What do you want? I'm going in the wrong order, but what would you like them to have? Like, what is it? What in your treasures there is it really important for people to have and for it to continue on? And that's where the story needs to be attached to it. Or for people who don't know what that weird thing is in your house. So what do you want people to have? What do you want them to see? What do they need to see, but don't necessarily need to keep the physical of? And finally, what do you want them to know about people, about things, about objects? A long time ago, and I forget now who I did this for. It was a show and tales presentation on a ship in a bottle that it's coincidentally has my mom's name on it. I think I've told this story. Sorry for those of you who have been here before. And I did a little chat. This was it. We were bringing objects that were important to us that we would always keep. And so mine was the ship in the bottle. Because I know the story. And so I told the story. Long story short, my grandfather in World War II in Canada was a member of the Veterans Guard of Canada. He was guarding prisoners in Kananaskis country, which, if you have never seen it, beautiful thing, full of mountains. back in the 1940s, there weren't a lot of ways in and out of there. So they had German prisoners of war were held there in a prisoner of war camp. But they also weren't really, and here wasn't really a lot of people trying to escape because there was literally nowhere to go. Like if you know, I don't know if you're not familiar where Alberta is, we're a landlocked province. We're not in the middle of Canada. We're one of the western provinces, but we have no access to any oceans or anything. Big pile of mountains. The other side of the province is all basically farm fields. So there really wasn't any way to bother escaping. So the prisoners used to do crafts and make things out of, I don't know where they got these from, but this ship in a bottle, and I know I've identified it's an old Sloan's liniment bottle, and it was made by one of the German prisoners at the prisoner of war camp.
Wow.
That's how it got my mom's name on it. So that's a really important thing to keep. One, it's of historical significance for the Canadian military. And I've seen different big displays in different museums of things that came from prisoner of war camps, because there were quite a few of them in Canada. It's really important in our family because it's got ties to, well, now to my mom, my grandmother. But when I was telling this, I had my son, I had to have a picture taken of me holding it. And then he goes, what is that anyway? Like, what is that? So he had no idea what that story was. So that could have got tossed when I passed without that story being known. So what is it important that people know about things? And so that's essentially when I'm thinking up of my big picture, that's what I'm thinking of is what is the big picture of what my photo legacy should look like. And I make a distinction between legacy and keeping all my photos as well. Like I'm going to make some heavy decisions now because I've got to go backwards digitizing as to how much I digitize of, like how many pictures do I need of me playing on a baseball team? I did not turn pro, just in case you were wondering. So do I need more than, and it's more important for the people, but how many pictures do my kids need to know to understand that I played on a baseball team? So some things are just, I need a fairy to come and put photos in the digital albums. Yeah, me too. So think about what your big picture is and maybe jot a few notes. And that should help you. Does anyone have a big picture like that you'd like to share? What is the end goal, or what do you hope to accomplish?
I'll hop in, Kathy, if that's all right. I just put a note up there that my idea is to hopefully have all my albums all digitized eventually. All the photos, digitized into albums. And I'm hoping that my grandkids, and the kids I don't think are interested, but hopefully the grandkids will be. I think I'm going to jump a generation. I've got a 40 to 50-year-olds who just want to throw everything out. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and I think too, Jenny, there's less chance, or there's the more likelihood they'll keep digitized stuff over physical.
Yeah,
it's the kids.
One, because I want to know that they know where on my computer they can find them.
Yes.
Or are they just going to wipe my computer clean when I'm gone? Or when I'm putting things on a cloud at the moment. I did sign up to Forever and get some gigabytes up there, and putting some photos up there now as well.
And I think that it's also, I know I didn't care about, we always had way little than I have now. We had a box, the Kodak Instamatic camera came in the 60s, and it had a lot of our photos in it, which was not a very big box. I still have the box, but I'd look through it once in a while, but I didn't care about it until I had kids. And then all of a sudden, all that became really important. And also the time, but I'm working on it now when my kids are just turned 27 or something, or 28. I can't remember how old they turned. 28, I think they just turned. But now I actually have time to work on it because most of some of those previous 27 years were spent driving kids to baseball, hockey, kung fu, and all those things. So, but there is a lot of interest in it. Every time someone shares a picture on Facebook, I cringe first, and then of an old family photo that someone's found, it almost always gets comments from the younger generation, my boys' generation, even other kids there, it's there is interest in it, and there's things we have. I think Barbara and I think we talked about this in some session about how our even our stories where we may not think, well, I'm nobody famous. Like I said, I wasn't a professional baseball player. We're not anyone famous, but the stories of our families are still part of history. And we've talked a lot about that. And I think it's important to keep that in mind when you're doing a legacy, or doing your photo collection, is that to not go, well, because I've told this story before too. My grandparents were Hudson Bay settlers, which was something we had in Canada. They came from Britain in 1929 from England, and they came by boat, and then they came all the way across the country on train, and they settled on a farm, which was provided. It was through the Hudson Bay and also Canadian Pacific Railway. They got some land, and then they farmed that land. But that's a piece of history that, because essentially what they were was what you call in the U.S. sharecroppers. They had to give a percentage of their farm, of what they grew, their
Yield.
farm, their yield. Thank you, Barbara. They had to give it back to the Hudson's Bay Company. So kind of that's what that word was, and it wasn't like it wasn't the pretty picture that was indicated by the farm with the fancy curtains and things. So, but that story, that's part of history. That's part of how the area where I live was settled. It's part of it's where I came from. It's how I'm in Canada, not in England. But so think about what the significance is of the stories you have to tell, even if you're not famous, because some people have stories to tell and they're linked to famous people, but that's a good one too.
I always think that the availability of a link to something of historical past gives you a sense for your own connection to that history, and protecting and preserving it, then it becomes a connection for your, those who will follow you, whether they're interested yet or not, or pass it down to those who will later. But when it becomes such a huge burden because it's a bunch of boxes, that's a different problem, and that's what nobody wants.
Yeah, exactly. That nobody wants to take on dealing with it all. So glad you're here to do that. So think about that. Think about what you want to see at the end, and then from that, the next thing that I want to do as part of this planning for 2024 is, what steps do I need to take to do that? And you may find it easier to come up with the steps if you break it down into a project. So if I say, okay, if I want to make a, I'll confess this. Next, in April, will be my 30th wedding anniversary. And I have no wedding album, believe it or not. The Creative Memories lady never did an album. And so I thought, well, maybe that'll be a little project that I can break down. I got to convert them. I think the video is still in the box of stuff. I did send the photos all off to be digitized. So I thought, well, maybe I'll make a little book. That'll be a project. So I'll break that down into an end project that is something I can work on and do, and it's done, as opposed to if you set your project as well. And this is the difference between when we work as a professional photo manager on someone else's collection. We go through a workflow steps and we gather absolutely everything first. Then we organize it all, or then we digitize it all, and then we organize all the digitized stuff. It's like a set, but you do the whole mess before. And so I've worked on projects that took 2 years just because it was somebody else's big mess too. But when you're being paid for it, that's not too bad. When you're doing your own, it gets kind of boring after a while. Like if you've ever done your own scanning, if you loved it, congratulations, but I can't think of anything. I actually paid someone to digitize some of my stuff, even though I own the equipment, because it just bores me to tears. But now that I've got focused, because some of my things that I want to work on in 2024 are my poor children who they've got baby books, but that's about it. So I've now digitized all those photos from their youth, and I want to put their digital albums together. Whether we print copies or not, that's a whole nother issue, but I want the albums and the stories told, because that'll cover a whole lot of ground in there with and get them pictures of themselves with their grandparents and all sorts of things. So that's one of my projects. But I know in order to do that now, I've got to I'm going to work a year at a time. I'm not going to try and do it all, but I have memorabilia to digitize still. I've done all the pictures, but I have box loads of memorabilia, but I'm going to do them a year at a time. I'm working on 1999 now. I'm going to digitize the memorabilia from 1999, and then I'm going to work on the book, on the project, because it's going to keep me going. And it'll get something accomplished, but it also will keep me interested in it, where the thought of scanning all their stuff that I got from school, and I probably am going to just take pictures of it because it doesn't really matter if the quality, but to try and tackle that as, let's go through 10 boxes of all the stuff you saved from your kids' schooling. It seems like the big mountain. So a side path up the mountain just to get something done, or get into that first base camp by accomplishing something, I think keeps you going. And so that's, I think, what we've come, and I think Projectkin, we've, over the last year, have really moved into the whole notion of what kind of projects can I work on. And then I get the work done I need to do. It's getting done because I did that project was done and finished. So I've dealt with Linda. I'm going to use you as an example because I know what your project was. Linda had diary, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I misstate any of this. Linda had a diary of her grandmother's that her grandmother had written in, and so she digitized some of it, and then the pages that were important, and then put them together in a poster with the pictures that went with various diary entries. And so that to me is a project. She got that accomplished of digitizing that diary and got the diary dealt with and made it in a format that can be shared and enjoyed, which is always what we want at the end, hopefully at the end, is for people to be able to enjoy the pictures and the memories and the stories and to get them recorded to carry forward. Does that make sense? Questions? Things aren't clear?
I have a question for you, Kathy. I find myself, and a little bit of this is just from my business experience, but I find myself sort of separating between the care of the collection as artifacts, as digital assets, and the expression of those digital assets in what amount to projects. In other words, storytelling in a form. When I have something that's part of a storytelling in a form, a picture used in that thing, I still keep it as a separate asset and carefully track it that way. To me, that's not duplicate, for example. But I don't have other than that, I don't have a particularly good framework for thinking of things that way. I do honestly call them projects. And then, of course, I also have a complicated archiving of the project artifacts, and that's why I have duplicates everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't bother me.
No, and that's fine if it's the whole thing with duplicates is depends on how they are. So I'm making albums because I'm an old scrapbooker. I'm just not doing them out of paper and cutting pieces of paper and stick them in books anymore. Because and I talk to my kids and it's like, do you want a physical copy of the book? Are you happy just to be able to go and look at it online? First question right there. The physical books are way smaller. Sorry, I was just reading the comment there. The digital books are way smaller and take up a lot less space. And also then they can pick and choose and what they might want prints of and stuff. But I will keep the photos that I use separately in my photo archive. I'm not going to get rid of the photos because I put them in a book. If that's the easiest way to say that. I'm going to keep the individual photos because someone may want an individual photo, may want to do something else with it. So that will stay in my archive, the photos that were used. So I hope that answered what you were asking.
Yeah.
There was the comment, I'll just clarify a bit there if I can. The comment be Forever and Black Blaze aren't really comparable. I'll just say that off the top. Black Blaze isn't focused on, as you've said, it's not focused on that at all. But Forever rather is designed specifically for memory keeping as well. So there's a big difference between the two. And I use them both. I back everything up to Backblaze because it's automatic and quick. And then I'm using Forever to store my family legacy in organized. So. Any other questions or comments on coming up with your steps? So I expect you to do this. This is sort of like your homework now. Yeah, permanent is another good one too. Also, I've just been looking at pCloud that I have to look at more. Instead of iCloud, it's pCloud with a P. So next thing, when you're trying to come up with your steps, projects is one way to look at them. Another thing you might do is to set up groups or of things like, so I've got my dad's family, my mom's family, and then what I call my family, which is the same as my mom's family, but my family since I got married. So that chunk. And then I have another group, which is my my mom and I from when I was born until I got married. That would be another chunk of pictures that kind of my youth that needs to be dealt with. Apart from it, I consider my mom's youth and everything to be part of the heritage of her family. So something to break them down to what makes sense to you, and then to come up with the steps. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by steps. So I've started working on my steps of things that I want to get done for 2024. And I have steps like put away all the digitized negatives. So that means put them into, I'm going to keep my negatives, they're the original, and they'll take up less space to store than photos. Like if my children are going to trash anything, I will give them permission to throw away the photos, but the negatives are the originals. So I'm going to keep all my negatives, because they're already all organized too, so I don't have to organize them. So that is one thing I need to do, is all the stuff that came back from digitizing, I need to organize those. I need to put them, not organized, I need to put them away because they're all in the bags that got sent to the digitization. So that's a task. Another task on or step I need to do is to go through all the gather up all the scans that have been done of my mother's family and compare because we have duplicates too, because a bunch of different people scanned, and figure out which are the best quality and which things need to be rescanned, and get that done before I can move on. Can't make an album until I get the digital. Like that's sort of what we've said all along, Barbara, is you open the door to so many possibilities once things are digital. Then I have a step. I've got to digitize the 1999's memorabilia because that's the year I'm working on in my boys' books. So I need that done so I can get on with, I've got the pictures digitized, I've got them sorted by month, I've got them laid out ready to go in the album, but I need to get the memorabilia done, which is fortunate because they weren't in school yet, so there's not a lot of it, but then we get to worse stuff. And things, and so groups, then I have to think of the next thing. Once you've got all these steps listed of what you want to do, what's most important to you? What things are the most important that you need to do? And then sort of rank your things in terms of importance to give you some guidance of where to start. And then, just hang on, I had one more. How will you schedule your time? And that's really important because time is often our biggest lack of time, rather, our biggest enemy in getting this done. And so if you set aside a certain, 15 minutes a day, probably not enough time if you're actually sorting through the boxes of print. You might have to set aside, like say, okay, this Saturday, I'm going to go through this box and figure out what I need to digitize, what I need to do with the stuff in it or where it needs to go. You might need more than 15 minutes, but for something like, and I've realized this, we'll have the confessional time even on the recording. At some point, I've been a fan of all the spin-offs of NCIS, but I had never watched the original. And so I decided that I was going to watch it. So I've watched now over this. Plus, it was really hot here in the summer. Like you couldn't do anything, and we had forest fire smoke the whole time. Like we were said, like now, and now it's 40 below. Like you can't win. So I just I'm gonna just get rid of my phone because that's a telemarketer. I spent an awful lot of time watching all that. And I was thinking the other day, that 20 seasons. I think I'm on season 19 now. That's a lot of hours that you could have spent doing something with your photos. So one of two things: you either have to figure out how to watch NCIS while we're doing things on my photos, or I need to set aside and say, okay, I'm only going to watch one episode tonight, and I'm going to spend another hour working on my photos. But you need to commit to it. Put it on your calendar, because it's the reason it never gets done is because you go, oh, I don't want to haul anything out. So look at things you can do, like multitasking. Look at, what can I do when I'm doing this and doing that? Okay, they're not going to leave me alone. There we go. Far away to get the phone out of my office, so I throw it in a drawer when it's ringing. But so set some time. You're going to put some time in your schedule where it's just like those appointments you have to go to, or the meetings you have to go to, or the Zoom calls you're watching. Set some time. For those of you who are in a good time zone, after Kathy's Corner, take an hour now and take an hour and set your goals. Set some steps down.
Do you have something you need to follow up on there, Kathy?
Yeah,
Are those all your beeps?
Yeah, just 1 second, because
Sure, no worries.
Hello.
So on the chat here, there's a whole thread
Hello.
of conversation while she's finishing that up, talking about different apps used for photo editing, photo scanning, photo organization, metadata, compiling, that kind of thing. This had come up a little bit when Al asked in the tools section of our other platform that we were using about Mylio when he was first experimenting with Mylio. Back as Ponga, I had asked around and settled in to use ACDC, which is, I'll post this in just a second. I'm frankly not thrilled with it. It's okay. All of these, to me, are about looking for alternatives. Was one of the things that Ponga never did photo editing, but we did a lot with facial organization. And we never did anything about forcing that information into the data file itself. So as with I'm stalling, you realize that, right? She's on the phone. As with any of these kinds of things, I believe strongly that you want to start with the question, not which is the best of this category. Ask yourself the question first: what is the problem you need to solve? What is the thing that you need solved most? And then ask about what other people are using and why they like that. Okay, I was just tap dancing there, Kathy.
I'm
Over
back.
to you.
Wasn't a telemarketer. It's my husband who's traveling, and of course has the flight delays. So good thing I answered.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, so we were talking about the scheduling the time, and that was I think the questions, the things I had to talk about. So we'll throw it open to questions. We got a few more minutes left, and you want to tell us about your projects, or tell us about if you've got goals, or I'm happy to answer any other questions, or
I'll start with mine. I've got a little system. I mentioned the project with my father-in-law. The goal there, always start with the goal, as I like to say. The goal there is to have a way that he can tell his stories and share them so they're not forgotten. He's 97 years old and sharp as a tack, very well able to write them down. He writes them in Word in Chinese and then sends them out an email, but he's terrible about remembering who he sent it to, and then nobody knows they're responsible for it. It was a mess. So we're working out a workflow for all of that, as well as a consolidation of the photos that we have, because frankly, the memory of who these people are in the photos and why it mattered is also disappearing. I'm using we are.xyz as a placeholder for that, and I can continually update them as I get better pictures, get better scans, get better improvements, get better data into the photos, that kind of thing. Right now, my priority is to get the stories as fast as I can, because as my father-in-law looked me in the eye and said, TikTok, TikTok. It's so scary.
I'm just looking something up, Barbara. Sorry.
That's okay. On a Macintosh, I use Preview, and then the software that came with my Epson. Any thoughts on using HEIF, the file form, the highly compressed file format? A lot of apps still aren't supporting it.
Are you asking me?
No, it's okay. It didn't exactly get a resounding excitement.
Okay.
I'll let it go.
I will try and ask or answer that. I'm still betwixt and between. I hate to give up my HEIF because they are good quality and they are smaller files. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why would you give it up?
Because they don't travel across platforms well. So,
But you could always convert them.
I convert
I
mine.
have converted them to JPEGs, but like JPEGs are lossies, right?
But you can keep the original and the HEI. Okay, this is about duplicates. I have no problem with duplicates. So I see a master file in its original form,
Yes.
and then I could make my copies from it as JPEG for use, essentially.
Okay.
Or, TIFF if I need it for something else. It's just fat. Jenny, you have a different opinion? Go ahead.
No, not necessarily. No, I would do that too. I use Historian, which is the program from Forever, and I found that the HEIC wouldn't come through, it wouldn't import them. So I had to convert them to JPEG to bring them in, or I convert them to TIFF if I wanted to make sure that they didn't lose their quality. And my probably preference is TIFF. It depends on what I'm going to be doing with it. If I'm not going to be editing it, if it's already a good photo, I'll leave it as a JPEG. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think a lot gets said about, JPEG's a lossy formula or format. It all depends on what you're doing to it. Like people get all scared about, I don't want JPEGs because they're lossy. And it's like, well, you got to do a lot to them before you're losing a significant amount that results in a difference in quality. Yeah. And I think, and I don't like obviously your Apple's going to store your HEIFs anyway. And I think you'll see a lot more people, or not more companies adding that to their format coming down the road. It's just right now, again, it's when something's new, you have to see what its longevity is going to be. So
fair enough.
Okay.
Christine.
David asked a question about old scanning software, so I put that link in there. It's ViewScan have all kinds of software programs for older scanners. So if you're like where it won't work, can't get the new drivers to go with Windows, check them out and see. PhotoMine, my only comment I'll make on PhotoMine is only as good as the quality of your phone. If you're taking pictures with your phone, and I have my phone is probably better than some of my scanners right now. It's definitely better than my old DSLR. But if you're working with older phones and things, there's a lot of things to be taken into account before just snapping pictures. Like I cringe a bit. I would like people to have a scan, or like the gold standard is camera scanning. It's where you're scanning with a camera, a DSLR camera set up with proper lenses and everything. And then there's a range of things in between. But if you're using a phone, make sure you have a good phone, because it's the quality you're going to get is only going to be as good as the quality of the phone. Christina asked the best way to name files of old photographs with lots of notes. I do mine with an A and a B side. The A side is the photo, and then the B side has all the a picture. I've scanned the actual backs too. When I'm putting them in into my photo organizing software, I use the notes as a description, and I only keep a few of the actual scans of the notes. Like if all that's written on the back is the date and the time, I just put that on the photo and don't bother keeping that information. If it's a story, I may retype it into the description so that it's attached to the photo and I don't have two files, because I figure that lessens the chance of it straying itself away. Or I keep the scan of the photo and then get them numbered or labeled as an A and a B so that you have two sides to it.
Sometimes the handwriting can be really precious too.
Exactly, and that's what I said. If there's, but you don't necessarily need the handwriting if all they were writing was the day. So, and I keep some so I have a sample of it. So it might just be the day and the date until I find a story. But is camera scanning superior to a flatbed? My opinion, or the opinion of professional photo managers and the Photo Managers Association, is yes, it is. Parker's laughing at me. I did not do camera scanning. It is really good. If you've got the equipment and you know how to work your camera, I think those are the two most important things. If you're, I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy a whole entire camera scanning setup to just digitize my own photos. If you're a photographer and you have the equipment, then the extra stuff you need to do camera scanning isn't that expensive. If you're starting from scratch and have never used a DSLR camera, because if you're camera scanning, you can't set your camera to automatic and expect good results. You need to know about all those settings that you got to get the camera off the A and put it onto the M setting. And you need to know about focal distances and stuff like that. But I think it's generally accepted in the community that camera scanning is better, is the gold standard. Now, having said that, if all you have, I will, again, confession time. I was visiting my aunt. My uncle had passed away, and there was a whole pile of photos on the table of him with his grandchildren and with his kids. And I scanned them all with my phone with Google, with an app called PhotoScan, because that's all I had. I didn't have my scanners with me. And what was most important at the time was to get that done. And there was going to be no way my aunt was going to let me take those pictures back to Calgary to scan them properly. So if that's what you have, if you have your phone, scan with your phone. But I would scan rather than take a picture of it. Like I would use an app like PhotoMine or Google Scan or whatever. I wouldn't just take a picture, because if you're not getting good lighting, or I don't know, every time I try and take a picture of something with my phone that's like another picture or a document, I get a reflection of my phone in it. So you want to watch for stuff like that. But my feeling is, yeah, PhotoScan is an app. Yeah, that Google Photos and Scan. Yeah, it's an app on my phone. I have an Android too. I'm sorry. There's probably a Mac thing too for that. But the Android PC girl doesn't know these things. So
I'll put in a plug for the power of these light boxes, these photo boxes.
Yeah.
They, with a good phone, not to get in a phone war, but we're all just chasing these generations of phones. So if you're already confident that you've got a really good phone, then an investment of $50 to $100 in one of these photo boxes is a good one, because it just keeps the phone very steady. And most of them come with one of these remote controls you can even just buy separately. It's just a little fob. Yeah. And you can basically click it without moving the camera. It's the moving the camera part that's hard. Yeah. And it adjusts the light, and mine has like 3 different light color settings, as well as having light from 3 different directions. Yeah, I'll get one. I was talking. Actually, while I'm talking, let me take this opportunity to go ahead and end no worries at all, Jane, to end the formal part of this so that we can keep the recording to a tight 1 hour. And then you all are very welcome to stay while we continue the conversation. I also know it can be hard to leave right in the middle of everything. So I'll give those who have to go a chance to go, but I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording. And thank you all so much for coming. So You're very welcome. Here we go to the recording. We'll stop. Bye-bye.